So we had a couple of other things drop around the Switch too, as everyone's kind of getting ready for next week with Nintendo to make the big reveal in their presentation. And one update has to do with actually the pre-order timing. And I figured, well, we might as well go ahead and slot that in now at the end of the week just to make sure that story is up to date. And the other one, I actually reference in this weekend's video with the Switch 2 predictions and kind of going into it. I thought, you know what, I should probably touch on it here ahead of that, just so we're kind of clear on exactly what I'm talking about in that video. But also, we're kind of going into this time period where with the Switch 2 being shown and everything ramping up after that April 2nd event, you're probably going to see random videos like this just drop sometimes like at night randomly. If it pops in my mind, I'm like, oh, I should probably get that out there. But also, if you remember with the Switch 1, that was mayhem. It was all over the place, constant information coming out, games being revealed. It was all over the place. So might be another situation like that, especially over the next several months, maybe even the rest of this year, because even after the system's out, there's still stuff all over the place. And like I said, it'll be pretty hectic, but I also think it'll be pretty fun. So let's actually talk about the pre-order stuff and also what that mystery button could actually be for, because we have something that sounds quite interesting and actually quite Nintendo, we'll say, and it sort of makes a bit of sense with it. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Now, these stories, we actually have, these are posted up over on Insider Gaming, and I'll, of course, have them linked down below. The first one has to do with U.S. retailer documents shedding light on the Switch 2 pre-order plans, which we had sort of discussed. Best Buy. It's Best Buy Canada who had some information go out. Jake Randall and others kind of posted it, just like the screen grab of it. And they were talking about April 2nd as when pre-orders would go live. And it sounds like mayhem to do that, because there's going to be the question of, okay, what time do they go live after the presentation? Do some excellently go live during the presentation? It would be a mess. And I think we had that with Sony and the PlayStation 5, if I remember right. It was crazy. So it would make more sense for them to wait a little longer. And in fact, this is according to, again, Insider Gaming. This is from documents that they viewed from a U.S. retailer. Pre-orders are set to go live on April 9th. Of course, 1 week after that Switch 2 Direct. The documents include a messaging strategy following the Direct to include pre-order coming soon messaging and a countdown clock that will end on April 9th with an exact time to be confirmed by Nintendo on April 2nd. So, it also says the documents included details on an exclusive collectible coin for those who pre-order the console. So there you go. Whenever the retailer comes out and we find out there's a collectible coin that's specific to that retail chain, we'll know exactly who they were talking to here. Although I guess by now it'll kind of be rearview mirror. Everyone's then like, okay, let's get this figured out for the Switch 2 and make sure we have one in tow for release. The other thing here, though, is they do mention the release in June. So that's kind of what I think people were expecting now. We were between like late June or late May, first half of June. But of course, we'll see on April 2nd when they unveil all of that. The other thing, though, has to do with that mystery button. So you remember that C button that we've seen in like leaks, but then Nintendo showed it and it was blank, and it was pretty obvious that they had edited the C button out for whatever reason, and just kind of leaving that up to mystery when they're ready to show it. And in this case, seems like, yes, that's what's going to happen on April 2nd. Well, this was according to Extus Ones. The Switch 2's mysterious C button will have multiple functions. So initially I heard that I said, oh, it's like a macro button. Not necessarily. It apparently will have different functions, maybe based on the game that you're playing. Okay, so they give an example here, but really in this case, one specific function is that it will let you connect the new system to an original Nintendo Switch, and it will reportedly allow players to use the Switch 1 as a controller or screen for Switch 2 games. So that's, I mentioned, that sounds very Nintendo to do that, but it also sounds kind of weird in the sense that the Switch 1 would still have relevancy then, because there would be at least some kind of function it can have piggybacking off of the Switch 2. So here's an example that was given by Extus Ones, and their video is here. You can check it out. Again, I'll have this link down below with Insider Gaming in the description. They go on to give an example of how this would work based on what his sources explained to him. Using Mario Kart 9 as an example, the Switch 2 user will be able to hit the C button and connect to the Switch 1, letting it then be used as another controller for the game. This would also allow, in this example, for Mario Kart 9 to be played on the Switch 1 screen to avoid split-screen play. So that's just, again, one example with Mario Kart 9. The idea being if you have a Switch 2, you don't have to chop the screen in half for 1 and 2 players, or even, I guess, maybe 4 for 4-player, if you have enough Switch 1 systems laying around, which Nintendo does have data showing that there are tons of households out there that have multiple Switch systems. So maybe in their mind, there are so many Switches out there, you may have some laying around that can act as second screens or second, third, fourth controllers. And when I heard that, immediately, of course, you think of the Wii U. But let's say you can sync up more than one Switch 1 system to it, then it obviously goes well beyond the Wii U. I'd almost think of the DS to a degree, if you remember with that and like Mario Kart. So if you have Mario Kart and you had one cartridge, you could then connect through ad hoc to other DS systems that don't have a cartridge, and it'll use download play so then they can jump into your game and play locally. All of that off of one cartridge, which is really cool, but you still need the same system. So that would be more like, oh, you have multiple Switch 2 systems like laying around and you need one cartridge. But here, I guess it would act like almost the GameCube to the Game Boy Advance when we had that. Remember, you could plug that in, and it would act like a controller. Or in some cases, you would use the screen where Animal Crossing, you could be able to go to an island and stuff. So it almost feels like Nintendo kind of playing off the idea of still keeping the current Switch relevant, needed, extra, just for the Switch 2. And, I mean, it's clever to do that because if you're someone who has, a couple Switch systems, you wouldn't then immediately go, I'm trading these in for the Switch 2, because now it's like, oh, what else can we do with these systems through this C button, I guess it would be connect button. And I assume they're going to have full marketing around it. They'll, I'm sure, have a name to go with it, and they'll showcase it in multiple different ways. This just being with something like Mario Kart 9 and split screen being essentially eliminated would at least be, I think, a pretty pivotal feature for multiplayer titles overall, especially if, say, you don't want everyone to see the same screen. That would actually make a lot of sense. So, for example, if Madden comes over, you could maybe pick your plays with the other screen if you're doing 2 players, and you guys can even play off maybe the TV together. So, like, there are some interesting ideas depending on how far exactly this goes. And if that's just one function of the C button, what else can it do? Because then you think of connecting Switch 2 systems together. It's very, very intriguing, especially if maybe third parties and indie developers especially have access to this. They come up with all kinds of different things. Like even HD Rumble had all kinds of crazy ideas attached to it, down to where the motors would be able to make sound, like based on what's happening. So like when it's your turn in Mario Party, it actually vibrates the motors and it creates a tone just to remind you. But it's certainly something we'll be keeping an eye out for as we get to that Switch 2 presentation. And just it does kind of make your mind think a bit about like what other possibilities could Nintendo have for maybe the mouse functionality, maybe the magnets that are being used, yes, to hold the Joy-Cons of the system, but there's been discussion that maybe there's a little more they can do with it. So the thing you can never count out is Nintendo's creativity, because it seems like it's never ending, and it should also make you wonder what exactly is left in R&D. Like, what doesn't make it out of there? It's on the cutting room floor, because it has to be some wacky ideas just based on stuff like this. But also, it does make their systems genuinely unique and very interesting compared to the rest of, like, the gaming industry. So, yeah, all eyes on April 2nd. But just a few things I wanted to go over here to close out the week. Make sure you keep an eye out this weekend for my predictions around the Switch 2, where I talk about the UI, the OS, the pricing, release, games, launch titles. There's all kinds of stuff in there. It should be a lot of fun, and of course see the comments based on everyone else's predictions, if anyone can actually hit on some of the crazier, more outlandish ideas. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.